Dear students, today the topic of my lecture is toxicology. Before starting the lecture, I would like to request you kindly subscribe my channel and click on the bell icon so you always get notifications from me. Now starting the lecture, I will first define you the definition of toxicology. What is toxicology? You can see here on the shared screen, toxicology is known simply as the science of poisons. Toxicology is basically poisons. It is a science of poisons. We know from Paracelsus that all substances are toxic. It is the dose that makes the substance poison. By nature, all substances are toxic. In these lines, it is said that by nature, all substances are toxic. But if the dose of that substance is taken high, it becomes poison. So, this is the dose which makes a substance poison. Actually, the substance is not poison, it is toxic, but if the dose is increased, then the substance become poison. You can understand this with the help of an example, like you are taking a medicine to cure a disease. It's not poison for you, as obvious you are taking it for curing the disease. But if you take a high dose of it, then it will obviously affects you. So it will become now a poison for you. So that is the case in which a substance may become poison if its dose is taken high. Now look at the next heading, routes of entry. How many routes of entry are there through which a toxic material can be entered into a body? There are four routes. Number one, ingestion. Number two, inhalation. Number three, absorption. And number four, injection. One by one, I will explain you. First, we will explain ingestion. Look at its definition. Injection is taking some toxic material into the body orally. Orally means from your mouth. Your mouth is the way of entry, is the route of entry through which you can enter any toxic material. So orally means from your mouth, and from mouth it goes into your stomach. Now the second route is inhalation. When you breathe, when you breathe, then the toxic material goes into your lungs. So it's the inhalation is the second route of entry. Number third is absorption. Taken into the body through dermal absorption. Dermal absorption means when a toxic material absorbs on your skin, like if a liquid like concentrated acid falls on your skin, on your hand while doing some experiments, then obviously it will burn your skin. Why? Because it's absorbed on your skin. So that's the meaning of dermal. It's absorbed on your skin. Last route is injection. Taken into the body through broken skin. When you inject some medicine, it's actually the pin that's break your skin and the medicine goes into your body. So if the dose become high, then obviously that medicine will become a poison for you or a toxic for you. So when the skins break, and some material enters into your body. It's called the route of entry, which is injection. So these are four routes of entry through a toxic material can enter your body. Occupationally, inhalation is the most common route of entry by toxic substances. Among these four routes of entry, inhalation is the most common. It means you usually takes a toxic material into your body through your nose when you breathe actually. Then it goes into your lungs. That's why in current situations it is recommended to wear face masks. Why? Because inhalation is the most common route through which a toxic material can enter your body. Now, next heading is acute and chronic exposures. Acute exposure and chronic exposure. What is the difference between these two exposures? We are going to study in this heading. When an individual receives a relatively large dose over a single or brief time period, we refer to this type of exposure as acute. If you are taking a large dose, a heavy dose, for a single time, for a small period of time, and it affects you, it's become toxic for you, then the exposure of such a material is called acute. I will give you an example of acute exposure. Example of an acute exposure is when a child accidentally ingests a household chemical. Example is also given for acute exposure, and the example is of a child. When a child roaming around a house takes a toxic material unintentionally, child is a child as you all know, and it goes into its stomach, into the body of a child, and obviously it's an acute exposure. Why? Because child just pick that material in a very short span of time, and that material was dangerous. Either it may be poison, or either it may be toxic. But when the child picked that material, it was a very small period of time, in few seconds, and the child takes that material into the mouth or inhalate it. But the effect that material affects the child, it was very, very, very offensive. It was very dangerous. Child become disease. Child will become sick due to that toxic material. So that's acute exposure. When a very large dose or a very heavy dose of a dangerous of a toxic material takes in a very small period of time, and it makes a large effect, then obviously we will call such type of exposure as an acute exposure. Now, what's a chronic exposure? When an individual receives a relatively low dose over a long time period, perhaps over a lifetime, we call this type of exposure chronic. Yes, if the toxic material, if the dose of some material is taken over a lifetime and is taken for a long period of time, either it may be taken like a small dose or a large dose, but it is taken over a lifetime or for a long period of time, then such type of exposure is called chronic. Example is of asbestos exposure. Asbestos is such a type of fiber, and the materials are made of it, and it's harmful for humans. And the smoking a cigarette is also the example of chronic exposure. Those who smokes have the symptoms over a lifetime. So smoking is also an example of chronic exposure. So these are the difference between acute exposure and chronic exposure. Thank you very much. Wait for the next video, and please subscribe my channel and click on the bell icon so you may always get notifications for me. Thank you.